Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video I'm going to be showcasing my nearly 300 point climb that I had in the Ultra League last week to climb up to number 45 in the world with a Pokemon you'd likely never expect. And that Pokemon is Ultra League Serperior. Serperior has long been a Great League top meta threat, but it's never seen in the Ultra League. But thanks to an unbelievable battler, Sausage487, who recommended the team, I tested it out and Serperior proved to be a meta breaker, shutting down top meta threats like Steelix and Gastrodon, and having a massive amount of bulk to neutrally outmaneuver a lot of other mons. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and take a look at XL Serperior paired up with Tentacruel and Shadow Steelix in the Open Ultra League. Hopping into the first match, picking up a Dream Lead Serperior into Shadow Steelix. Shadow Steelix is now on Thunderfang this season, which means they have absolutely no play whatsoever against Serperior. Serperior gets to land a Frenzy Plant, dealing devastating damage. Opponent safe switches into Confusion Cresselia, and I get to bank a ton of energy before sending in my own Steelix. Confusion Cresselia is honestly getting a lot more common at high elo Ultra League, as people really do like the fast move pressure. Personally, I'm not a big fan of Confusion users as a whole at the moment. They're going to go for another Grass Knot, and now I'm going to look to connect with the hard-hitting Earthquake. Against the Pokemon as bulky as Cresselia, I'm not likely to go for a bait. They're going to pivot back into Steelix. My Switch Clock is not available, so I will not be able to get a catch. I am, however, going to bank a bunch of energy on the Steelix, and then I'm going to look to pivot back into Serperior, and now look to potentially pick up a KO with the Frenzy Plant. Frenzy Plant lands, not quite enough to knock out. Whether it's Psychic Fangs or Breaking Swipe, both are going to do a hilariously small amount of damage. They do get the 50-50 attack drop. And that actually matters, as they're going to bring in Giratina. Normally, Frenzy Plants do add up on Giratina, but debuffed, that just does nothing to the Giratina. So now, I'm just looking to fire off Frenzy Plants purely just to burn my Switch Clock. My opponent is on Dragon Breath, which means Steelix will be able to do pretty well here. And now, I can bank a move, switch into the Steelix, and I'm threatening a Shadow Earthquake. I will go for the bait, as I'm able to grab the shield from the opponent, and now I can fire off the Psychic Fangs. They're unlikely to shield, as they know this one can't be the Quake, but since they're debuffed, it does do more damage than it typically would. I'm more than happy to let the Steelix go. They are on Dragon Claw Ancient Power, which means their charge attacks are walled by the Steelix. Dragon Claw is going to pick up the knockout. I have a move loaded on my Serperior if I need it. Opponent is going to pivot into the Cresselia, and Cresselia is going to launch some energy. I am going to respect it with a shield, and then I will look to successfully pick up the knockout with the Scald. Scald will easily KO. I debated Acid Spraying here, but in case they decided to save the shield for Giratina, I figured it was safer to not, and now I should be in a winning position. I do have a move stored on the Serperior, and here I do go for a little bit of bad manners. The win con is definitely just to go for the Scald, and then that way I'm able to win with the move on Serperior, but I like to have some fun with Acid Spray, so we are going to go for the Acid Spray. Switch Clock is counting down. I can go for Acid Spray number 2. That's going to burn the shield and the rest of the Switch Clock, and since I have 2 Pokemon alive to their 1, I get the win. Picking up a positive lead in the next match, Serperior versus Lickilicky. This is a win for Serperior in all even shield scenarios. Another top meta threat in the Open Ultra League that Serperior does a great job at neutralizing. Opponent save switches into Cresselia, and if you're going to save switch Cresselia, I'm going to make the same play every time. Bank a ton of energy on Serperior and send in the Steelix. And they don't even have Grass Knot. Even with Grass Knot, Steelix is just such a wall to Cresselia that Cresselia can't make a lot of headway, but since they don't have Grass Knot, Steelix is just in an even more commanding position. Earthquake fired off on the CMP tie, and that's going to leave its mark. Cresselia, another Future Sight. Steelix, not even below half HP. Switch timer is up, back in comes the Lickilicky, and I am going to respect an Earthquake, and they do have that move. So now I can bank a ton of energy with the Steelix and switch into Serperior. Did we successfully catch the Earthquake here? We did not. The opponent is actually on double nuke and went for the Shadow Ball, anticipating that play. So a nice anticipation there from my opponent, but since they're double nuke, I can undercharge the Frenzy Plant and get a little bit of extra farm. In the back is Giratina. Last game I was debuffed, so these Frenzy Plants didn't do much, but now that I'm not debuffed, these Frenzies do actually add up. They're going to be below half HP after this second Frenzy. So this Frenzy is able to land. Timer's up, and we're back in with the Steelix. This team, one thing that I liked about it was it definitely incentivized a very aggressive playstyle to bank energy, pivot in and out, and desync timers. This Giratina is on Shadow Sneak. They did no shield the first, which is a pretty nice play. I'm now firing off Psychic Fangs number 2, and now the shields will begin to come up. I make another Psychic Fangs. It is a CMP tie, and I decide to let this go. Shadow Sneak will pick up the knockout, but they are so low. They can bring back in the Cresselia. I do know they have Future Sight, so I am going to commit the shield. And now I can look to fire off a move with the Tentacruel. So Tentacruel is going to go for an Acid Spray here. The opponent kind of has to shield if they want a chance to win the game. And if they do, then I can just send in Serperior. Serperior switching is going to force their hand. They're forced to fire off energy. They will go for the Moonblast. And now I can bring back in the Tentacruel, get to the Acid Spray before they get the move. And since the defense is already debuffed, this Acid Spray will knock out. And then all that's left is a very low health Giratina. And as with most matches in the Ultra League, we are going to the timer. Dragon Claw, that's just not going to matter. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. We move to the next match, Serperior versus Annihilape. Serperior cleanly wins the zeros, and you can also pick up the one shield if you do successfully no-shield a Rage Fist. The opponent no-shields the first. They farm up to the close combat, but I am going to let that through. They full send the close combat, but XL Serperior is so bulky that I can withstand that damage, make it to the Aerial Ace, and after they no-shield, win the zeros. Opponent sends in Wheezing. There's going to be the pivot out into the Tentacruel, because this is an ABB style team. If they have a Mud Slapper in the back like Gastrodon, I have to bait it out. But the fact that they're staying in does give me hope that it's not going to be a Mud Slapper in the back, as if you're staying in the Tentacruel Wheezing matchup as the Wheezing, there's something very seriously wrong. Scald does actually get the 30% debuff. The opponent in the back, they have Feraligatr, and this game is very over. One thing that I really enjoyed about this team is that if you run into a Feraligatr anywhere on the opponent's team, it's basically just a free win because your entire team has winning matchups there. Steelix beats Feraligatr, Tentacruel beats Feraligatr, and of course Serperior absolutely crushes Feraligatr as well. This is a crunch Feraligatr. They were hoping that would knock out, but I have a very high ranked Tentacruel able to hang on. My opponent has used both shields in the match, and unfortunately for them, both shields were used on Acid Sprays, and we get the 2-shield flex. Bad lead in the next match, Serperior versus Shadow Zapdos. I'm going to save switch into Tentacruel to check and see if my opponent has a Mud Slapper in the back. If they stay in with the Zapdos, I'm going to be spamming out Acid Spray baits and trying to fast move through them. They go for a Thunderbolt. There's a Mud Slapper, but that's not the Mud Slapper I was expecting to see. Shadow Rhyperior hits the field. Acid Spray bait gets the shield. That means they have to throw instantly when they get the Rock Wrecker, because if they don't, I would force the final shield. And they need to full send here. Rock Wrecker will pick up the KO. They are -2 defense. Look at these Vine Whips. Oh my goodness. Serperior absolutely melting the opponent. They get a Breaking Swipe. A bit of good luck goes my way as they do not get the debuff. They're going to bring back in the Zapdos, but the Zapdos has already taken damage from that earlier fight with Tentacruel, and Frenzy Plant, only single resisted, will do a lot here. The Frenzy Plant is going to be shielded. I'm farming up with Serperior, the switch into Steelix, and we catch the Drill Peck where it's going to be resisted. That's a massive catch. Opponent stays in with the Zapdos, and in the back, they have Virizion, and unfortunately, from back to front, I've basically been hard countered here. They had a Zapdos for my Serperior, they had a Mud Slapper for the Tentacruel, and now they have Virizion for the Steelix. But look at this. The switch timers are misaligned, which means that my switch clock is up and theirs is not. This is because I caught earlier, and this allows me to switch into Serperior, click the Aerial Ace. I lose the CMP tie, but it's a CMP sack swap. So we get the Aerial Ace. I was able to switch, my opponent was not. They're going to bring back in the Zapdos, but I was able to preserve enough health on the Shadow Steelix that I'm going to survive one Drill Peck, and that is automatically game winning for me. My opponent needs the double up, they cannot get there, and despite basically being countered, first Pokemon, second Pokemon, and third Pokemon, we're able to play our way out of it and get a very clutch win. Serperior versus Zygarde. Now this is a bit of an interesting lead, as most Zygardes will have Gastrodon in the back. So as Serperior, you're going to need to catch out of this. So I start up farming up a ton of energy with Serperior, land the Frenzy Plant, do one, and catch onto the Tentacruel. They're unlikely to throw a ground move at a grass type, so it's a pretty safe catch. I'm able to successfully catch an Outrage. And now I farm up awaiting the Gastrodon. But there's no Gastrodon switch in. They stay in with the Zygarde. I shield. It is a Bulldoze. And they're going to bring out Licky Licky. So either they're making the team read and they're saving the Gastrodon for the Steelix in the back, or this is a very rare Zygarde that does not have a Gastrodon paired with it. Either way, I've debuffed their defense 2 stages, so the Scald will force a shield, and now I can pivot back into Serperior. Serperior will fire off the Frenzy Plant. Their defense is at -2, so that is going to grab the final shield. So they've given up both shields in this match on Licky Licky. Licky Licky goes for a Body Slam, and that's just not threatening at all to Serperior. Here, my timing is very, very poor on the switch in. I end up giving up an entire free Dragon Tail, and it matters. They get a last second charge attack. It is, unfortunately, just a Bulldoze, so I miscounted there and I end up shielding a Bulldoze, but we redeem ourselves with a quick switch and a catch of the Body Slam onto Steelix. I was 1 off the Frenzy Plant, so they had to throw instantly there, and by getting that catch, I'm now in a very nice position. They are on Shadow Ball, so no Earthquake from my opponent, and they have Shadow Steelix in the back. So they did have a second ground type lurking back there, but this is one that my Steelix is more than equipped to handle. Earthquake does huge damage. They're forced to expend a ton of energy on their own Earthquake, and now I can just bring in Serperior. Serperior gets to fire off the Frenzy Plant. Frenzy Plant is going to pick up the knockout. Back in comes Licky Licky. Licky Licky is forced to throw energy because Serperior could make it to a move. Body Slam will KO, but I still have Tentacruel, and Tentacruel is going to make the Scald when they make the Shadow Ball. Tentacruel winning the CMP tie. So I definitely misplayed in the mid game, but team is strong and we're able to get the win. Picking up a solid lead in the next match, Serperior versus Clefable. But I have 2 better responses in the back, so I'm going to try for a Moonblast catch. I don't get the catch, but there is the Gastrodon bait out that I was trying for. Here, I mistime it again. So unfortunate timing there on the switch in, so I do end up giving my opponent a Mud Slap for free. On the switch in, sometimes the animations can be a little bit deceiving, and in that instance, unfortunately, I do give my opponent free energy. However, regardless, the team is still working as intended. I baited out the Mud Slapper, and now I can look to farm up a ton of energy with Serperior. I'm trying to maximize my energy gain, so I farm up to 100, go for the Aerial Ace, and pick up the KO. They do have quite a lot of energy stored on Clefable, so I'm going to look to switch instantly as they bring in the Clefable to get a catch onto the Steelix. Clefable did actually go for a Swift bait in the back. Oh no, trainer. They have a Feraligatr, and Feraligatr is about to get absolutely destroyed by Steelix. Feraligatr plus Fairy Core is a very strong one, but Steelix breaks that core. Steelix, I now just get to ramp up my damage more and more and more. They can't shield fast moves, so I'm going for the full farm down here with the Steelix. Steelix gets the farm down, and now I get to apply a permanent debuff on the Clefable since they have no more switches available for the rest of the game. So Psychic Fangs is going to land. They can go for a Moonblast, but it simply will not be enough. They are just fighting a war that they cannot possibly win at this moment. I can switch into Serperior, fire off the Frenzy Plant. Frenzy Plant plus a few Vine Whips is going to secure the win. Dream Lead Serperior into Unova Stunfisk. Opponent save switches into Zygarde, and this is uncomfortable, as they have a lot of ground types, and my backline is pretty weak to ground. So I'm going to have to make some plays here. I'm going to farm up a lot, switch into the Steelix. Unfortunately, I don't get the fast move through that I should have there. I do catch a Crunch. I was hoping to catch an Outrage, but I will still take a Crunch catch. And now I can just look to farm up a lot of energy with the Steelix. I decide to respect an Earthquake. Oh, they're actually on Crunch Bulldoze. That is a crazy moveset. They're going to bring in the Stunfisk, and now I get to fire off the Earthquake. The fact that they debuffed me is very uncomfortable, as now that means Mud Bomb will actually do a lot of damage. However, I'm recognizing that it's still not going to be enough to KO, so I can let this through, and then look to bring in Serperior, and Serperior is just going to get so much farm here, because unfortunately Stunfisk is just in absolute shambles in this matchup. I'm going to go well over 100 energy here intentionally. I want to exit this matchup with 2 Frenzy Plants loaded, because the moment they switch into something, I'm going to have energy to throw. They have Mandibuzz in the back, and now I get to spam out Frenzy Plants here to help stall the switch timer. So Frenzy Plant after Frenzy Plant is going to connect, and now I get to send out Tentacruel. This is Air Slash Mandibuzz, which means increased fast move pressure, but they have very, very slow pacing. I'm farming up a lot now, and I will go for the Scald. Since switch timers are misaligned, honestly, an Acid Spray feels too risky, but it looks like maybe I should have Acid Sprayed, as they do end up shielding, and they're going to switch into Zygarde. But Bulldoze is an absolutely awful move, so I'm very comfortable no-shielding that. It's a super effective hit, and I just do not care. Bulldoze is terrible. Scald is going to land, quick switch back into the Steelix, and this is what I really liked about the Ultra League in this rotation, is the fact that there is so much maneuverability with the 50-second switch timer and these monstrously bulky mons. You can continually dance in and out of matchups and really make your opponent's lives difficult. Here, they're actually going to shield a very low health Stunfisk because they don't have a good way of getting rid of the Steelix otherwise, but I'm pretty okay with that. I'm going to wait the timer, and I actually bring in Tentacruel here intentionally, knowing my opponent would be looking to immediately pivot into the Mandibuzz, expecting the Superior. And now I can Acid Spray, combo play with the Aerial Ace. Their defense is at -2, so it will actually KO. The match timer counting down once again as we farm down the Stunfisk and clutch the win. Superior into Malamar in the next game. This is a very nice matchup for Superior. Superior just outbulks the thing. Opponent is going to try for a catch onto Shadow Drapion. Shadow Drapion save switch and honestly Shadow Drapion lead are both uncomfortable for this team. If you see it on the lead, you kind of have to just send in the Tentacruel and play it out, and then trust in the fact that if they're leading Drapion, hopefully your Superior is going to have play in the end game. And if it's on the save switch, you kind of have to bring in the Steelix, but Steelix is not going to do particularly well here either because Drapion is just insanely spammy. I farmed up to the Earthquake, I go for the Fangs bait, and they end up calling the bait and pivoting back into the Malamar to snipe me down. And just like that, in a split second, I'm down 2 shields. So this game has dramatically run off the rails, and I'm going to need to play very well if I want an opportunity to claw my way back into the game and still get a win. They go for a superpower, and that of course means that their side wave damage is now going to be reduced, and they're going to be taking extra damage as well. I go for the Aerial Ace, it will pick up the knockout. Talonflame is their final Pokemon, and this is a Pokemon that I can beat. Aerial Ace is going to connect. They snipe with the Drapion, but that is actually a mistake because they have now switch locked themselves. Psychic Fangs is going to be shielded. I switch into the Tentacruel, hoping that I did successfully catch the Aqua Tail, but my opponent has terrific reaction time. And now, as the Tentacruel, I just need to commit to a full farm down. I need as much energy as I possibly can, and here is where the magic of Acid Spray is going to be very nice. They do get the debuff, but thanks to the Acid Spray pacing, I'm going to actually get 2 Acid Sprays before they can get to the fly. And my clock will be up after this as well, and you've never seen Thunderfang damage quite like this. In comes the Steelix. Opponent is forced to try for the farm down, because if they throw their energy, then I can just Poison Jab down with the Tentacruel and win. But thanks to the residual energy we stored from earlier, we're able to clutch the win. We've got a bad lead of the final match, Superior into Drapion. This is the non-Shadow Drapion, but whether it's Shadow or not, I still have to save switch into Tentacruel. I'm hoping my opponent ends up switching out, so hopefully I can reposition later, but they will end up staying in, so hopefully that means no Mud Slapper awaiting my Steelix in the endgame. Scald is going to connect. Landing that damage is very nice, as it puts it closer to Frenzy Plant range for Superior later on. They go for another Crunch. I'm farming up to the Scald, and unfortunately, they will win the CMP tie. Crunch is going to connect. I get to fire off the Scald in return, as I did barely hang on, and I'm able to grab a shield from my opponent and get a debuff. And now, since I got the debuff, I'm going to send in Steelix, and I just need to get a lot of farm on the Steelix. Steelix will be hit with the Aqua Tail. Opponent pivots into Feraligatr, so it seems like they don't have a good response to the Steelix if they had to pivot that in. So I'm going to save the Steelix for later and instead bring in Superior. I commit the shield. Ice Beam wouldn't have knocked out, but I did still want to respect it, and unfortunately I did get baited. Now I get to fire off the Frenzy Plant. Frenzy Plant will pick up the KO, and it seems like Steelix will have quite a bit of play for me in the back. They're going to send out Drapion, but Drapion did not farm up a lot of energy before switching. So I get to fire off the Aerial Ace. That's going to be shielded. they're looking to bank a ton of energy, and now in comes Drifblim. And Drifblim will be answered with the Steelix, and Steelix just gets to spam out these Psychic Fangs. Psychic Fangs number 1 is going to connect. They do have enough for a Shadow Ball here. Shadow Ball would still barely not knock out, so I am going to let it go, and it will be the Icy Wind. And that just puts me in a very favorable position. So Psychic Fangs number 2 will connect. They will make it to a move, but the only way that I lose this game is if I shield Steelix. So I just let this go. They are very heavily debuffed. They're going to send back in the Drapion firing off energy. I will commit the shield as they get the crunch, but I can click Aerial Ace. Aerial Ace will KO, and despite a difficult lead for this team, we are able to claw back and get the win. In comes the Drifblim, and the opponent will resign the match. All in all, I had an absolute blast getting to run this team, and it's always nice when I can run something interesting and have very nice positive elo gains with it as well. So again, big thank you to Sausage487 for creating the team, because this team was unbelievably fun. One note that I will say is, since this team is a hard ABB team and the lead is, it's probably the best anti-meta Open Ultra League Pokemon at the moment, but it's still anti-meta. This team will require careful gameplay to use. Like, if you don't play it like an ABB and you don't successfully lure out a Mud Slapper, then a Mud Slapper is just going to absolutely destroy the backline. So I don't know if I would recommend it as like a top Open Ultra League climbing team, but I did have amazing results with it, and XL Superior, it's not something you see every day. So I don't know if I'd recommend this particular team as a climbing one, but I had an absolute blast getting to use it. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoy watching content like this, please consider leaving a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.